So as you create a brand for yourself that's known and you create those opportunities, inevitably it gives you a platform that you are now ideally able to help others.
Welcome to Velocitize Talks. I'm Andy North, and today my guest is Shama Hyder, author, visionary, strategist, and CEO of Zen Media. Shama, thank you so much for being here.
Andy, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Now, you have an incredible background as a marketing pioneer, as an author, as a visionary strategist for the digital age. You're a web and TV personality. And I don't know how you find the time, but you're also CEO of Zen Media. Tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got where you are, and tell us about Zen Media and what sets itself apart in the marketplace.
Well, thanks so much for that humble intro, Andy. I sure do appreciate it. My main hat is CEO of Zen Media. It's something that I'm really, really passionate about. I am quite hands-on with our clients and the work that we do as well. And I find so much of what I'm able to share with my audience at large globally comes from the work that we do in the trenches, predominantly with B2B companies, a lot of tech companies. So Zen Media, we're a PR marketing firm. We specialize in B2B companies and within that realm, a lot of tech-based B2B as well. Got our start very early on. So I started as a social media firm, believe it or not, and grew from there. So one of the first social media agencies, arguably in the world. Did my thesis on Twitter from the University of Texas at Austin, which I believe you're also an alum of. And did my thesis on Twitter when it had 2,000 users. So really, really early days, and felt passionate about where the world was headed. Fortunately or unfortunately at that time, a lot of companies didn't quite agree with that. I constantly got asked, what's Twitter? Facebook is something my kids use. Remember, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, Airbnb, like none of these things were even on the radar. But I knew that very strongly, I felt like this was going to be a game changer in the world of business and communications. And so I think at 22 I was rather naive, which is, by the way, a wonderful quality if you're starting a business. That naivete is everything, because I think if someone tells you everything you're going to face along the journey, you might not do it. So I think that naivete was super helpful, because I thought, well, I believe in this, and none of these other companies are really offering positions or jobs because they don't have jobs in this arena. It was so new at the time. And that's essentially why I decided to put out my shingle. And here we are 15 plus years later. And I'm really proud to say that Zen Media is not just me. We're a pretty solid team, remote before COVID, long before COVID. And we serve a global clientele, and we do a lot of earned media, PR, social content. So really our strength is digital and helping clients understand how, the buyers have changed and helping them meet those buyers where they are today and how they're making decisions today.
That's an outstanding journey. And yes, shout out to the Texas Longhorns. You have two books. The Zen of Social Media is one, and the other is Momentum, How to Propel Your Marketing and Transform Your Brand in the Digital Age, which both discuss marketing and branding, obviously, in the digital age. Do you mind sharing some of the key takeaways from your books with our viewers?
I wrote the Zen of Social Media Marketing when there weren't any books on social media really out there. In fact, people were asking me all these questions about social media, and I had no reference material to say, go read this, or it's just the industry was so new. And so I wrote the Zen of Social Media Marketing. It's now in its 4th edition. It's used as a textbook to teach actually social media in colleges across the world. And it really is meant to be a primer to understand what role social plays in the broader scheme of things within your marketing. One of the things I talk about is this ACT methodology that I laid out in the book called Attract, Convert, Transform. So how to attract customers, convert them, obviously, and transform the success you have and use it as leverage to attract even more visibility and attention. So Zen of Social Media really is a great primer for those wanting to still understand how these platforms come to play and what role they need to play at large in their marketing. Now, Momentum, which is my second book, is much more strategic in nature. And in that book, I've laid out principles that can really guide your marketing strategy in the digital age. So the importance of curation, for example, is a key principle. So many people mistakenly believe that when it comes to social media, it's creator or bust. Like they have to be a creator. But one of the things that I think is fascinating is you can be a curator, much like what you're doing right now, Andy, on this interview, right? You can curate, experts, information that your audience will find valuable. And that's just as powerful. So these are some of the principles I talk about in Momentum.
That's fantastic. And speaking of the digital age, you recently spoke at South by Southwest in a session titled Treacherous, 5 Marketing Lies We All Believe, which fascinates me. It refers to the failure of the attention economy. So I have a few questions here. First of all, what is the attention economy? How did it fail us? And what are some of the marketing lies that we all believe?
So the attention economy, is this idea where as long as you get attention, you, in any way, shape, or form, you can move forward. And a lot of what's fed this is attribution and looking at attribution software. A lot of these vendors that try to sell us these ideas, sell marketers on these ideas, that everything is trackable and everything is measurable, when we know that's just not really true. And so what you find is companies have found ways to get attention, but they're not necessarily getting a seat at the table. They're not getting invited into the types of things that they like, the deals that they want to be at, the speaking invitations, or even the PR opportunities. So the idea is, how do you make yourself relevant and in a world that's really noisy? So attention is great. We know visibility drives opportunities, but it needs to be the right type of visibility. It needs to really be the thing that gets you invited to the table. And so some of these lies that I covered for South by, I'll highlight one of them for you. It's, this idea that everything again is measurable, and it's really not. What we find is, I've been talking about this concept of dark social since 2016. More and more social and media are getting split. There's the media element, which is, a lot of it is just strangers like TikTok and Instagram, information we consume. But then the social element is, a lot of that is happening in the dark, meaning it's your messaging apps, it's Slack channels, it's LinkedIn Messenger. All of these areas are where we're having communication and we're sharing ideas, but none of that is accessible. It's not something that companies can see, but it's certainly something companies can influence. And I think that was one of my key goals to help marketers understand at South by and at large, that so much of what you're doing is not going to be trackable, but I don't want people to choose the merely measurable when really they could be going after the much more meaningful.
Would you share your thoughts on the challenges and opportunities around personal branding, and what exactly is digital body language?
One of the things that I wish everyone understood about personal branding at large is that it simply means it's your reputation, right? It's what people say about you when you're not in the room, whether remotely or physically speaking. And personal branding is really just the art of building that reputation, being strategic about the things that you do. And also, I wish people would realize that personal branding is very much a selfless act. I think people tend to see it in this like, oh, it's about bragging about yourself. Not at all. The thing is, visibility does create opportunity. So as you create a brand for yourself that's known and you create those opportunities, inevitably it gives you a platform that you are now ideally able to help others.
What does the future hold for social media marketing? What are some of the opportunities you see as new platforms potentially emerge and new behaviors emerge?
I think the key thing here is to realize that social media is not about the platforms. I mean, since the beginning of social media marketing at large, people have asked me, what's the next platform? What's the next thing? What's the big thing? And what I'm fascinated by is I always tell them the same thing. There's always going to be another thing. There will be another TikTok, guaranteed. There will always be another platform out there. The thing that I want people to really realize is this idea that people are now the media, this kind of fragmentation of culture and trends. This is not going away. And so the idea is, how do you leverage people? How do you leverage social media when people are the media? And that's a very different take on social at large. I also think that understanding social media being two separate pieces and recognizing how much of that is happening in dark social, where how people engage with your content, you don't have a say in that. You don't get, you're really responsible for a process and outcome you don't control, but you can certainly help influence to a certain degree. And I think that's the fascinating part, and probably going to be the most challenging part when people feel like, where's the consumption? How do I track all this? How do I know? And the thing is, you don't get to have that much insight into your customers from that perspective.
One of the questions we like to ask all our guests is, what's the best professional advice you've either heard or been given?
Be grateful for your highs and graceful in your lows. And this is something I've held on to. You in all careers and lives, you have high points and you have low points. And I certainly think this adage has helped me through the highs and the lows. This idea of being grateful when you do hit those high points, and remembering all the people that have helped you get there, and then being graceful in your lows, because it's the best that you can do, and just keep going until you get out of that valley.
Is there a book, a blog, or a podcast that you'd like to recommend to our viewers?
So I read a lot of historical fiction. I enjoy things outside the realm because I feel like that's where most creative ideas come from. One of the things that I actually really enjoy, completely non-marketing related, is a newsletter on Substack called The Time Machine, where this lady shares recipes from a bygone era. So she'll share recipes from the 50s and 60s. And I find that's one of the things I subscribe to and love.
My guest today has been Shama Hyder, CEO of Zen Media. Shama, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Andy. This is fun.